Okay. Hey guys.
Hi.
Welcome back to another episode of
High school in a nutshell. Actually, no, we're biology in a nutshell today.
But again, I'm Zoe, your host,
I'm Grace, your other host.
and today we're going to be starting a new and exciting lecture series.
Yay! So we're really excited because we both survived AP Bio last year. We both got 5s. And we're just gonna do like a little lecture series on each of the units to hopefully help you guys understand through some analogies, slides, jokes, and hopefully to help you guys eat on the AP Bio exam.
Real. I got an A in the class.
Me too, I got an A.
So we're qualified to be teaching this.
Yeah, okay. So our qualifications are we both got A's in class. I ended actually quarter 4 with an A+. And then we both got 5s on the exam. And we made these slides before the exam to help us study for the actual exam. And it worked.
Do you know how long before the exam? 2 days.
Yeah, 2 days. We crammed. I think this is like like 200 slides.
200 something, more than 200.
More than 200. We crammed it in like less than 48 hours combined.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those 48 hours, I think we spent like 30 or something hours working on these slides, like at school, at home, at night. Like
I remember coming home from practice and just like decking slides out with this.
We were like 10 slides an hour and then like keep going.
Yeah, no, I know. And so you'll see a lot of unhinged jokes. Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoy our not so serious side.
Yeah. And then if they're helpful, we can share like some overall tips on like how to deal with biology tests and like for the actual exam when it comes closer. So just let us know. Yeah. We love you. You will survive. Bio is so much better than chemistry. So if you survive chem, you will love biology. Hopefully.
Okay, so let's get started. Biology slides. You are not cooked for the exam. Day 1.
Yes.
We're covering Unit 1 today, biochemistry and macromolecules.
So the actual unit for College Board is, I think, chemistry of life. So this basically aligns with
the name.
College Board's goals, I think. Yeah.
I think the name is better. Biology Day 1, biochemistry and macromolecules. It's very, because like chemistry of life, who knows what's going on?
Yeah, like we're not doing chemistry in this class, okay? Chemistry is just the very basis of biology. You gotta know You gotta know some chem.
Yeah. Let's start.
So, basic chemistry, of course, because we gotta know our atoms before we get to know other stuff. Basic parts of an atom would include proton, electron, and neutron. So what's important to note is that the proton and the neutron would reside in the middle of the atom. So as you can see from this diagram, there is a whole like cluster of particles here, and the ones at the center would be the proton and the neutron. So this would make up the nucleus of the atom. And it's also important to note the charges and the different atomic weights of each of the subparticles. So for proton, it's a +1 charge, and it is 1 AMU. And then neutron would be, as the name would suggest, 0 charge, so it would be neutral. And it also is 1 AMU, so that would be in the nucleus. And then the electrons are like orbiting the nucleus of the atom, and they are negative in charge. So, yeah. And then it's also important to note that electrons have a mass that is super small that scientists can't really measure it. So it's just better to know it as like 0. And then, so in like a basic atom, the electron and the proton would also cancel out each other. So the atom or the element on the periodic table would be neutral. So that's that. And then I don't know if Zoe's gonna get into like other like ions and stuff later, but yeah. But that's basically it. Basic chemistry of an atom. So would you have anything to add?
Girly, ionization doesn't happen in like AP Bio in the scopes of AP Bio. That's AP Bio.
Okay.
I think she's thinking of isotopes.
I'm thinking of like Ca plus, like
so that ionization. So very basically, ionization happens when we gain or lose an electron. But you guys don't really need to know that because AP Bio doesn't test on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so that's basically it about like the basic chemistry and parts of an atom. What happened? Wait, is this? No. Okay, so more stuff on the basic like basis you need to know for bio would be each of the elements on the periodic table. So we're just taking carbon, for example. This is what it would look like on a periodic table. And basically all of the periodic tables would be similar. So at the top left-hand corner, you would find the atomic number, which would tell you how many protons the element has. Which I'll get into later, but it's important to note that one element can only have a certain amount of protons. So, for example, if this element, carbon, had 7 protons, then it would no longer be carbon, and I think it would be nitrogen. I would
you definitely just sang the song in your
head. I did sing the song in my head.
Yeah.
I was like, carbon everywhere. Nitrogen. Okay. So it's important to know that carbon only has 6 protons. Okay. And then it would also probably have the element name. Not all versions of the periodic table has this. Just if you see like a certain one and it has it in for you. And then the big symbol would just be the symbol of the element. So C would be the symbol of carbon. And then below, the symbol or the element name would have the atomic mass of the element. Atomic mass, I think it's made out of the proton and neutrons that are in the element. And the reason why we're not accounting for the electrons is that they're way too small to measure. So it's only made up of the carbon and the made up of the protons and the electrons in the element. So it would make sense because carbon has 6 protons and 6 electrons, so 6 neutrons. So it would also have the atomic mass of 12.
So I do want to add something. The atomic mass that we see on the periodic table stands for the average atomic mass of all naturally occurring isotopes. It's not there, Grace. I don't think I have a slide on isotopes here, so I'll quickly explain what isotopes are. Or do you want to explain?
You can explain.
So basically, isotopes are basic same element, right? But you're having a different number of neutrons. So that changes the mass, but not the identity of the element, nor the charge of the element. Because remember, neutrons are only +1 in mass, but neutral in charge. So therefore, the most abundant naturally occurring isotope of carbon is carbon-12 because we got 6 protons and 6 neutrons. But we also have isotopes such as carbon-14, where you have, I think, what's 14 minus 6? 8? Yeah, 8 neutrons instead. So that's like a basic idea of like isotopes are. And isotopes are actually really important. Do you know why, Grace?
It's radioactive, and I think it's less stable when it's, I don't know.
So it depends. Certain isotopes are less stable, but it's not necessarily radioactive. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But
Well, then you
scientists
can start
can
yapping.
make it radioactive, so where you can use it as a radioactive tracker for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Such as, like, I'm pretty sure your textbook, Campbell's, if you guys aren't reading Campbell's, what are you reading? Like, a mixed example of urea, like tracking urea using isotopes, like your urine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically like all you have to know for now. Alright, I'll hand it to Zoe.
Next. So you guys just spent a good long while staring at an orange block, carbon, right? And turns out carbon is actually hella important in all of biology because, fact check, there's a whole field of chemistry directed just on the study of organic compounds, or compounds containing carbon. And this study is called organic chemistry. And so, apparently carbon is actually very important with a whole, catalog of qualities. And because of carbon, what is she doing?
I'm writing organic chemistry. See?
Yeah. But anyway, because of carbon, we saw the first rise of larger, more complex compounds. And we saw an increase in diversity within molecules. And this is where your macromolecules such as DNA, proteins, and carbs come in. We'll discuss more about that later. Aside from carbon, there are also several other very important elements to know in the field of biology, and these are going to be your essential elements, I guess, for life. CHONSP. And these things just combine with each other to get a whole selection. I can't do this. Of molecules. Basically, yeah.
Alright, so.
Next slide.
Oh, my bad. Oh, this.
Alright. Now it's time to yap a little bit about history. Y'all know I don't like history, right? But when it comes to biology, or AP Bio specifically, turns out you actually got to know a little bit of history. And so the history of organic chemistry comes from, I guess, this guy named Berzelius. He was a chemist. And so he wanted to give it a name of these molecules to distinguish organic versus inorganic. And so organic chemistry is only in living organisms and non-living. They use these things to distinguish living versus non-living material, like organisms versus materials, I suppose. And so the main theory behind this was because vitalism. Vitalism was the theory that physical and chemical laws do not apply to, like, living things, but no, that's not correct. Organic chemists actually believe that, or they found that mechanism was the way that, I guess, things went in the living world. And so the main experiment, I suppose, was by Stanley Miller. This was a professor, I believe, at Chicago University. And what he did was he stimulated early Earth's chemical conditions. And so, earlier. This, how was earlier?
It was fiery.
Right, so it was, like, very not good. Not livable. Right?
Yeah.
So, but what he found was quite the contrary. There was this spontaneous formation of organic compounds. So that's where life began. So that's where the speculation comes from. Let's move on.
Is this my slide?
I think this might be my slide.
I think it's your slide.
Okay. And so, how did these organic molecules become bigger and bigger and more complex? They did this through bonding, the formation of chemical bonds. And so, we can use an example. I'm making you guys look at carbon again because carbon is just so important. Well, how does bonding happen, you may ask? Bonding happens primarily through the interaction of these electrons called valence electrons. These are electrons in the outermost shell. So you can see carbon has 6 electrons, right? Because it's element number 6. And the valence electrons, the ones on the outside, there's only 4 of them on the outside because there are 2 shells that is organized in. And so the bonding happens in that specific shell. And all atoms, all elements, they want to complete their valence shell because that's when they're most stable. Right?
Yeah.
That's when the molecule becomes stable. And so to calculate, I'm not sure if you guys will need it, but it's always good to have the number of shells you need to complete the valence shell. You just do the number of shell, like the number of the shell the valence shell is, squared, and multiply that by 2. So for example, for carbon, you see we have the second shell, that's the valence shell. 2 squared is equal to 4, 4 times 2 is equal to 8, and that means 8 is the number of electrons you need to complete this entire shell. And since we already have 4 that exist, that means we only need 4 more to finish the shell off.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this is my slide, but this is my slide. Okay, so Zork's little joke up here. What's your type? That's like a little analogy, I would say, to like different types of bonding between atoms. So I'm just going to explain like them 2 ones that you may already know before this course. So first is covalent bonding. This is when the electrons of 2 of the different elements share the when the electron is shared between 2 elements. So the main goal basically of covalent bonding is that both of the elements want stability because of the sharing of electrons. They get an electron, which will bring them closer to stability or filling their valence shells. And then the pole, because of electronegativity, basically means that elements on opposite sides of the periodic table want to come together to, fill their valence electron shells, and the ones on. How do I explain this, Zoe? Like the ones on like the left side of the periodic table. No. Okay, the elements.
To explain it, you can just say electronegativity is how much, and I guess any atom, any element, when in a bond, has the ability to pull electrons towards themselves. And so this is measured with a number. And the higher that number is, the more it wants to pull the electron, and the more the electron goes to it. And therefore, that electron ends up spending more time in the orbitals of one element than opposed to another one, causing this sort of polar charge, one being slightly negative, one being slightly positive, to exist within a polar covalent bond.
Yeah. So, if you had just no idea what Zoe just said, basically, for you know how electrons are negative in charge. So when one element pulls on the electron more than the other one, if it's more electronegative, that means the electrons want to spend more time around that element, which gives that element a slightly negative charge because there are more electrons in certain times orbiting that element rather than the other one. So an example would just be water, H2O, where oxygen is more electronegative than hydrogen, meaning that it pulls on the electrons in hydrogen more than hydrogen pulls on the electrons, which means the oxygen side of H2O would be more slightly negatively charged, and the hydrogen side would be slightly positively charged, We'll get into that later when we talk about the different properties of water, but that's just like a basis of covalent bonds. There are two sets of covalent bonds, polar and nonpolar covalent. And then next is ionic bonds, where the opposites attract. So this is due to charge differences between the different elements. And unlike covalent bonds, the electrons completely get stolen from one element to the other. So for ionic bonding, metals and nonmetals typically on different sides of the table attract, and one of the elements would gain the electron and one would lose it. So an example would be NaCl, which is sodium chloride. Chloride is more electronegative, which means it wants electrons more than sodium. And that would just cause chloride to completely take that electron away from sodium and add it to its shell rather than just sharing it. That's because the charge is super, super big, so that it has the energy to take the electron from sodium. If it helps, you can look at this diagram, but yeah.
I just want to
Do you want to add anything, Zoe?
You're sodium fine.
I'm so what?
Not you. The person who's watching this is sodium fine.
Wait, what?
Sodium fine. Sodium fine.
Oh! I didn't understand it for a hot minute. Yeah, you're sodium fine.
Just wait until we get to the hormones.
Girl, you did not just say that. Okay. Dang. Okay. Next, so we're going to talk about the other bonds.
Oh, okay. So you got these other things too. They're not that important, but you should know them. I guess you can call them weak forces. There's a couple specific types. Van der Waals interactions in specific. These I think personally are pretty cool.
I still don't understand these.
Huh?
I still don't understand Van der Waals forces. I just know that gecko feet.
Yeah, so geckos use this force to stick to walls, and I think spiders do too. So this happens when two atoms are basically pushed kind of close together, and so you know how atoms are made of subatomic particles,
aka
right?
electron and protons and neutrons.
So there's positive charge in the
Go.
Okay. There's positive charge in the nucleus, negative charge in the electron orbitals. And so what happens is that the electrons all push to one side. And then the nucleus of that other atom attracts the electrons. And that forms some sort of electrostatic bond.
This.
You can see it. Guys, I'm hella sick.
Yeah, but she's pushing through. She's a strong young woman in medicine.
And I'm still lecturing you. And I'm still lecturing. And I'm still... And yeah, and this happens with, in real life, with geckos on walls and spiders on walls and all those other creepy crawlies you see. Another type is hydrogen bonding, and this is another one of those weak forces, but we can yap about this later because it has its own chapter dedicated to it. It's super duper important, so you should know this concept really well when we draw on it. Alright.
Bro. Did I skip a slide?
You skipped a slide.
Is this my slide? Yeah. So, this is just an introduction to chapter 3, which is all about water. So water, as you may know, is super duper important that it gets its own chapter in the textbook that we used. So we're going to spend a lot of time on water because it's really important. And just a couple of properties just to get your brain juices flowing would be adhesion and cohesion, the saying that water is denser than ice, universal solvent, and temperature regulation. And all of this happens because of one concept, which is polarity, in which I have briefly mentioned when I was talking about polar covalent bond, but we'll get into more of that in this next part of this lecture.
Is this my slide?
Yeah.
All right. We love polarity. So basically, polarity occurs because a molecule let's say a molecule has elements of different electronegativities, with one being primarily taking the electron for most of the time. So, for example, H2O. Oxygen is the second most electronegative element on the periodic table, and so it wants electrons a lot. And therefore, hydrogen isn't that electronegative, and it wants to give up the electron when it's paired with oxygen. And so when we have H2O, each hydrogen will actually give up one of their electrons, not all the way, but a little bit. So it ends that oxygen has two more electrons orbiting its shell for most of the time that this is bonded. And that occurs, and that gives oxygen a slight -2 charge, and it gives hydrogens each a +1 charge. And so polarity, as you can see in this example, results in extra negative and extra positive parts of a molecule. And this also encounters with dipole-doppel forces, which I'm not sure. Dipole forces. Dipole-doppels are another thing. I'm not sure if you guys need to know this one specifically. So I would just look it up if you guys don't know, or if you want to know. I won't explain further because I don't think we have enough time for that. It's already 9 p.m., Grace. Anyway, polarity is responsible for hydrogen bonding, and hydrogen bonding is responsible for everything. So it's pretty important. I've wrapped this idea down. Oh, I'm also pretty sure that last year on the AP there was one multiple choice question specifically about hydrogen bonding.
Yeah, I think so too. But
and the multiple choice, you remember the diagram?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Okay, I might cut that part out because we're not allowed to share any multiple choice points.
Oh, are we not?
No. But just in case.
Anyway, hydrogen bonding happens because of this, and so now each part is slightly charged in a different way, with oxygen being slightly negative, hydrogen being slightly positive. And what happens when you have a positive and a negative, when you have opposites? They want to give each other a big hug. And so oxygen has a slight -2 charge. That means that it can hold up to 2 hydrogens, because each hydrogen is a +1 charge. And each hydrogen being +1 can only bond to 1 oxygen. So what happens when it's fully bonded is that it forms this kind of tetrahedron kind of shape, as you can see, fully formed hydrogen bond with one molecule of water. It can connect up to 1, 2, 3, 4 other molecules of water. And so, yeah, this is the basic hydrogen bonding interaction. You can move on.
I am. Is this my slide? Yeah, it is. Okay. So, one of the properties of water, which again happens because of hydrogen bonding and polarity, is adhesion and cohesion. So, basic definition terms would be that adhesion means that water molecules stick to other molecules, and cohesion means that water molecules stick to each other. So you can just think of this as co-friends, co-worker, you guys work together and stuff. And this is also due to hydrogen bonds. So as Zoe mentioned, the reason why waters stick to each other is because of the the slightly positive and negative charges between the water molecules. And so this is So along the edges of like a tube of water, if you have ever like been in a lab before, the edges tend to stick to the sides of like a test tube or like a graduated cylinder, and that happens because of cohesion. Because the water molecules want to grab on or attract to the sides of the graduated cylinder. And then towards the middle, it like sinks down because there's just more water on the side trying to grab on to other molecules. And cohesion, which just means that the water inside of the test tube bind to each other. And because of this, stuff like surface tension would happen. Because when you're imagining like a water in like a lake or something, the water, but I forgot my word.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, okay. The bonds between the water molecules would bond together, but then like oxygen in the air or like other gases in the air would not like bind to the water molecules, so that it causes a surface on. So that it causes like a surface at the top of like a lake or something. Do you have anything to add on, Zoe?
I think that's chill.
Okay. So
this is my slide?
This is my slide.
That's your slide. Okay, yeah.
So water is denser than ice, which is important to note because ice, as you may know, is a solid and water is a liquid. And usually solids are denser than liquid. So if you like drop a rock into like a cup of water, is it gonna sink or float? Probably you would think it's gonna sink because it's a solid in liquid. However, when you're talking about ice, which is the solid form of water, ice would float and water would be more dense. This is because when ice is formed or when water turns into a solid, it forms a crystalline structure, which is shown here, where the what the chart is this?
What?
This structure. So
that's basically what ice looks like under a microscope. That's the structure it is.
Yeah.
It's called a crystal lattice, or some people call it a crystalline structure, and this is what happens at 0 degrees Celsius, because this is basically what the least amount of density looks like. This is the most distance in between particles.
Yeah. So this is ice.
What happens when it's fully bonded? Each water molecule is fully bonded to 4 other ones.
Yeah. So it creates this like crystalline structure, and that like bond, like when it's fully bonded to 4 other water molecules, create like a space in between the different molecules, which would make it less dense than water because water is free floating.
I need to stop your yap right there. That's a little bit inaccurate.
Okay, go.
It's not like that it creates space. It's more so that it reaches each particle reaches the maximum distance it can with each other.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah, you can go on. I'm done.
That's basically
okay. So
that's like my interrupter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, Zoe kind of taught me this when I was learning biology. But like, yeah. So that is, it creates like there's like space between the molecules. However, when it's liquid, the water kind of just like floats around, and it doesn't have like a specific structure that it adheres to. So if you're looking at the density, then it will be more dense in like a small area of space than if you take water. So if you, for example, if you have like a free floating water like this boxy shape, then you can only fit this many like molecules of water when it's in ice form. But like water can be like, let me draw this. It could be like this, and then like, eek. It looks like an alien.
Girl, I don't think you should be drawing.
Yeah, I don't think I should be drawing water.
Let's not have Grace on the drawing board.
But yeah, it could float like this, that, like that, and then like it doesn't have to form like a structure like this, which would mean that the density would be more dense than water, and that would make it less dense than water. Hence, why ice floats on water.
Yeah, I agree with that. I did teach you this. I taught you this 3 times, and you forgot after each time I taught it to you.
But I didn't forget on the AP exam.
It wasn't on the AP exam.
I mean, okay, fine. Then I didn't forget on my unit test for biology.
Your unit 1 test was a 78%.
Hey, but I got it 100% at one point.
On your plants?
Guys, I'm a pro at plants. Hence why I have so many plants hanging around my room.
Yeah, Grace is a future botanist. I'm not sure if you guys can tell. Wait, which slide is that one?
What? Oh, wait, let me pull it. Should I pull it up?
No, that should be a surprise. You guys are in for a treat. Like, way later down the line.
Cellular energetic unit. Be here. Or be square.
Yeah, be here or become a square.
No, be here or become a plant. That I'm going to be experimenting on when I become a botanist.
Like, imagine being a square. Literally be SpongeBob SquarePants.
Okay, you're going. Alright.
Oh, yeah. So water, turns out, is actually kind of important, too. To, like, life and stuff. You
mentioned that so many times.
Okay, yeah, because it is. It turns out a lot of things are important. And so I keep on repeating myself.
Guys, repetition is key.
Yeah. Because you guys hear me saying, it turns out blank is actually very important. You guys will, oh, this is very important. Because you've heard it so many times.
Okay, go.
Anyway. Basically, I guess not anyway yet. I need a coffee. I've been going on for too long. Anyway, for real this time, water is polar, and because it's polar, what does polar substances do? Grace?
Oh, it attracts the opposite side. The opposite charge, sorry.
Yes, polar can attack polar. And so there's this idea that like dissolves like, or like attracts like. And in this case, it's polar dissolving polar. And a lot of things in the world are polar. For example, your NaCl. This is like your table salt.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what happens when you put salt in like water when you're cooking soup and stuff. Biology in real life. Yeah. So Cl, as we remember, has a slight negative because it pulled the electron away from the Na. And guess what's kind of positive in water? Say it with me. 1, 2, 3.
Hydrogen.
Yeah, so all the hydrogens are going to now flock to each of the Cl atoms within the NaCl molecules. And guess what's kind of positive but inside NaCl? Sodium. And guess what's really negative in water?
Oxygen.
You're a little late, but okay.
Hey, it's a lag.
So now all the oxygens are going to pile onto the Na+. And what happens when they do that is that they form these kind of little shells among them. And these are called hydration shells, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So, yeah, these like little waters form these hydration shells. And this is effectively, basically, pulling these molecules, this molecule apart from each other. Now, oh my god, she should not be writing.
I can't write on computer.
Okay. Yeah, so now basically, we've got separated table salt in your soup.
Yay! So you're technically eating like chlorine and NaCl.
Yeah.
That's nice to know.
You're eating chlorine and you're eating sodium.
Wait, so if I dissolve a banana, does that mean I'm gonna have potassium? Okay, I need to shut. No. I'll go in there today. All right.
So guys, apparently Grace has a potassium deficiency.
That means I can eat potatoes, but you have to eat spinach.
Because I have an iron deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's fine.
Yeah. Stop mewing. Okay, go.
This is my slide too?
Yes.
I need a water break. I'm out of water.
Oh, nar. That I can do this. Actually, no, I can't. Go, Zork. Go.
You're making me do this without water?
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Let me see if I can yap. Or my voice is actually going to give out.
We're already 42 minutes in.
Damn, you're going to have a lot to edit. Anyway.
You need to give me an hour to do my history homework.
You'll have until 11.
Okay, cool. Go.
Yeah, so we only have 5 more slides to go anyways.
Oh, perfect.
The most important thing you need to understand for this slide is that heat is equal to thermal energy transfer. Because heat is kinetic energy, right? And kinetic energy is in another form, movement is kinetic energy, right? And the faster something moves, when you hit this more fast, what does it generate? Heat. And so it turns into temperature. It turns into thermal energy. And so basically temperature is your average kinetic energy. And what happens is that when the calorie increases the temperature, each calorie increases the temperature by 1 degree Celsius in a gallon of water. And each kilocalorie, which is 1,000 calories, would then temperature goes 1 degree Celsius in 1 kilogram of water. And this basically contributes to this idea of a high specific heat, which is basically when you put a lot of energy into something to make it change heat, like make it change temperature. Mm-hmm. And this is what you see in water, which is like why, for example, in summertime, you put a lot of heat into the water, a lot of heat, but the temperature in the sea, in the beach, when you go have a beach day, rises only a little bit. And then once it hits winter, it's kind of warm because it's been absorbing all this heat, all this like thermal energy. And so now it's kind of warm. And so it stays warm for a while. Mm-hmm. And this is what kind of regulates land temperature, because when the water is kind of warm, when the water is kind of cool, the land around it also gets that kind of effect. Another important concept to know for this is the high heat of vaporization, which means that you need to put a lot of energy, a lot of thermal energy into this to make it evaporate. And when it evaporates, it takes that amount of energy off of you. Mm-hmm. So you feel it's taking away thermal energy, and so you feel cool. And this contributes to another essential characteristic, I want to say, of humans. What makes us as a species kind of cool is that we have sweat. Sweat is evaporative cooling, and this is why we have such high stamina in comparison to a lot of other animals such as cheetahs. Although they run fast, their stamina only lasts for a little bit because they don't sweat. Mm-hmm.